Most people think that small talk is just that, small. But in reality, it can be one of the most important conversations that you have. And I think one of the biggest challenges that people face when it comes to small talk is they don't think it's going to lead anywhere. And so if you put yourself in the headspace of getting into a conversation and you know before you've opened the door that it's a dead end, you don't have any motivation to be curious. It's certainly not fun, and it definitely feels like a waste of time. But in reality, small talk only means that you're having a conversation with somebody that you don't yet know. So that could be for kids on a playground. It could be at your first day on a job. It could be at the dinner table with long lost cousins or aunts. It doesn't mean that there's no connection. It just means you don't know them yet. And so you struggle with what it is to talk about. Small talk, if we were to talk about it being big talk, might give you the opportunity to see how important it could be to you. I think one of the challenges that people face when meeting people for the first time is they don't have the confidence to talk to somebody that doesn't yet know them for who they are. And without that sense of relatability between you and another person, you can feel small yourself. You can feel like you don't have anything to offer, or you don't know how to show up, or even what to ask. So the first step in small talk is to find a little bit something out about the other person. So it could be, why did you come here today? Or what are you doing here? Or has anything fun happened to you today? You can kind of lean into the things that make you feel most comfortable when you're uncomfortable. For some people, that's humor. And so if humor makes you feel comfortable, then it's okay to crack a little joke or to give a little smile and get the other person talking. The good news is that most people are not good at small talk, which means you have a fear of what the other person is going to say, all the while the other person is too afraid to start talking because they also don't know what to say. And so if you can extend some type of an olive branch that allows both of you the space to start from somewhere, then we can begin what might be a future relationship. Not every conversation has to lead to something either, but you won't know the value of the relationship until you just open the door a tiny little bit. So if you're on a playground, for example, this is your first day in first grade, or you're empowering your kids to have the kinds of conversations that they might have with somebody on the playground, it could be, I love slides. Do you like to play on the slide? So what you've done in this little silly example is you've shown some vulnerability yourself. You've given some information about yourself. And then you've asked, is there some relatability between you and me? So if you take that same formula and you translate it into being at a dinner table for the holidays, it could be, I love the mashed potatoes at Thanksgiving. What's your favorite dish when you sit down at a Thanksgiving table? And so you've given the space to have some conversation around what you might relate. And you might find that in a room, half the people will like mashed potatoes, for example, and half the people won't. But either way, someone has to fit into one of those two camps. So you're not alienating anybody by offering something that you might be able to relate to. If it's your first day in a working environment, for example, your vulnerability could be just that. Today's my first day, and I'm looking around trying to find the people that are like me. How did you find the people that were like you? Right? And so then what you start to learn is not only where there's some relatability, but you also start to get their context. What is important to them? Do they mention people that are like them because of the way that they dress or the types of things that they eat for lunch? Or do they mention people that are on the same career track as them? They're in my department. They're in my organization. You start to learn then what's important to the other person, which allows you to take the conversation to the next next step with them in a way that's meaningful to them. We all have this like show me that you know me button, right? It's like when you walk into a room and people's defenses are up because they're typically not good at small talk. And then you spot someone across the room who has the same pants on as you because you both bought them on Amazon. It's so easy to go up and be like, are those the Amazon pants? And then when they say yes, you immediately see all of their defenses drop because you fast-tracked your way to that show me that you know me button. You're trying to get to that button as quickly as possible in small talk. And sometimes it's not pants, sometimes it's not clothing, but there's something that you're seeking that says we can relate to each other in this conversation. So I think some of the biggest things that people can focus on if they really want to move the needle in their small talk is how do they build the confidence to be in a room? And much of that is remembering that as hard as it might be for you, it probably is for the person on the other side. To how do they show up with authenticity so that they feel most like themselves when they're trying to show something of vulnerability for themselves. And 3, how they can find a spot to relate to with the person on the other side. And then 4 is what happens next. Do they want to continue the relationship? Do they want to do something else together? Was this not so small talk just an opportunity to practice? But yeah, I think that small talk is hard for most people, but once you realize how big it really is, it gets easier. So my go-to question to move beyond the typical how are you or what do you do, which both of these are really door closers instead of door openers, because no matter what somebody says, it won't allow you to move on from the conversation. If you say how are you and they say great, then you'll likely say some form of great, right? Or if you say, what do you do? And they say, I'm a tax accountant. Well, unless you're filing your taxes right then, you probably don't have any other questions to ask them. So my go-to question is typically, what's exciting about this opportunity today if you're in a networking situation? Or who are some of the people that you work with? Or what are some of the places that you get to see doing what you do? And I think sometimes just that allowance for some of or type of or like of allows them the space to interpret your question in a variety of different ways. Sometimes it's the chance meetings between one person and another person that can really change the trajectory of your path. There's been times that I have walked into a coffee shop or into a restaurant, and it would be easy enough to thank the waiter for bringing them your coffee or ask for another napkin and not continue the conversation from there. But it's been the moments where I have been able to have real and genuine connection with somebody, even without having an expectation of where the conversation leads, that has created some of the greatest opportunity in my life. Our nonprofit organization is called Community on Purpose because people often say that community happens organically, but nothing happens organically. It takes you showing up and making a difference for things to happen. There have been conversations that could have been throwaway conversations, but because I found out about something that someone needed or something that was important to them, we were able to actually impact them. And had I never asked the question, I never would have known. There's one thing that I've stopped saying in terms of small talk, and that's what do you do? The question, what do you do, inevitably closes doors before it opens them. If somebody tells me that they are a tax accountant, I either don't have any idea what that means or what they do, or I have no need for it. And so the best thing that I can do is maybe ask them something I've been trained on, like what are the best ways for me to save money on my taxes, which is kind of equivalent to how's the weather. I don't really care, but it seems to be the only way to engage in conversation with somebody. So instead of asking somebody, what do they do? I ask them, what are some of the things that you do in your career? When a conversation starts to fizzle, I often find the problem is that the two people engaged in the conversation aren't quite sure where to take things next. So maybe they thought they were talking about one thing, but they've exhausted all of the things that they know about it. They've tried to shift to another topic, but then it feels too forced. So I think the best way to reset a fizzling conversation is to connect over something new. And often that just entails saying to the other person, that one was wrapped up. What else are we got going on today? And just calling it out like it is and saying, I don't know what the path forward is, but I'm enjoying this conversation with you. Sometimes I think if you don't have a lot of experience talking to people who are different from you, and that could be where they come from, what they believe in, or what experiences that they've had, we can feel inadequate in having the conversations. And I think if you're going to experience new cultures, new beliefs, new ways of thinking, and really see the possibilities that are available to you in the world, we have to get really comfortable having conversations with people that we don't know anything about. The beauty in that space is that there is a shared unknown. And the bigger we can play in the unknown space, the more possibility that will come of it. So whether this is your first time talking to somebody in a brand new work environment, or you've done this 100 times, remember that the partnership and the pairing between you and the other person, there is always a first. I've got a little trick for you the next time that you have to do small talk. I want you to think of these 3 C's: compliment, confidence, and connection. The first, compliment. What can you say to be friendly? Smile big, lean in, and just think of something nice to say. You'll see how easy it is to keep the conversation going from there. The second, confidence. Remember, if you don't know what to say, they probably don't either. You can relate on that. And the third is connection. How can you find something that you both can relate to?